Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of philosophy, and we're discussing regarding the Robert's philosophy, the chapter number 29, I think so. The disease classification, the psychosis. We have started just introductory part of this chapter, where he tried to explain the Hahnemannian concept of understanding this miasm. Psychosis is correlated with the gonorrhea, and gonorrhea is of two types. These two types have been mentioned by Hahnemann himself. Earlier, gonorrhea considered to be an acute disorder, but Hahnemann said there are two varieties of gonorrhea. The first is acute variety, acute gonorrhea, where the disease happens to be there as a yellowish mucopurulent discharge, either from male or female urethra, caused because of Neisseria gonorrhoeae. And this presents as an acute disease. It has a period of prodrome, then progress and decline. These are three phases which used to happen over there with this any acute disease. But there is one more variety which used to produce the constitutional effects of gonorrhea in the form of pigworts over there, which affects and involves the internal structure of the human being. And then he said this gonorrhea is not an acute disease. This gonorrhea itself, if you try to suppress it over there, it enters inside, affecting the soft tissues, affecting the blood, producing anemia. And this gonorrhea will going to affect the even offsprings. The gonorrhea and syphilis, these are the two venereal diseases which happens to be there in whatever stage with the first partner, it goes into that in the same stage with the another partner. So this is very, very important thing which has been mentioned by him over there regarding the gonorrhea and syphilis. Both venereal miasms transmits in this way sexually and transmits in whatever stage it is. So if it is in latent stage, the latent state gets transmitted to the partner and partner suffers from it. So this is one thing which he has mentioned. Second, these venereal disorders or venereal miasm gets transmitted transplacentally from mother to the child or infant. Then third thing which we have discussed over there, the secondary and tertiary symptoms. Secondary symptoms happens to be there in the soft tissues, in specifically in pelvic inflammatory diseases affecting the ovaries, affecting the uterus, affecting the fallopian tubes. Most commonly, then lungs, then the rheumatism, which can be developed muscles over there. These are secondary symptoms of this disease. But if you still tries to suppress that, for example, rheumatism, if you tries to suppress that, it enters into the heart and produces the heart symptom, that is the valvular heart diseases or rheumatic endocarditis. And those are the tertiary symptoms of the miasm. What he has mentioned over there, the last sentence which we have discussed, that secondary and tertiary symptoms of the miasm, of this psychotic miasm, can be cured with homeopathic remedy if remedy is very perfect simillimum for the case. He has mentioned over there the secondary and tertiary symptoms of psychosis can be entirely eradicated by the homeopathic treatment. In the secondary period of psychosis, almost every disease that may arise takes on an inflammatory nature in some form. It may be acute, it may be subacute, or chronic, and it may vary from mild to malignant fevers. And on this note, we have finished last lecture. Let us start with the page number 230. The paragraph number 4. We know how frequently we see cases where soon after marriage, a perfectly healthy and robust girl begins to droop and become ill. This is because secondary symptoms of psychosis have been transmitted to the extensive mucous surface of the female organs. Oftentimes, it is single organ that becomes involved, like the ovary with its cystic manifestation or fallopian tube manifests its inflammation. Again, they may show a very anemic state of the blood, and when this anemic condition arises, it affects every part of the organism, coming on gradually, slowly, until the whole system is permeated. She becomes pallid, drawn, puffy. There is no stamina in her muscles. The anemic condition arises from this stigma because psychosis destroys the red blood cells through the imperfect oxidation of the food. See, here he has mentioned how this psychosis gets transmitted. It is transmitted in whatever form it is there with partner number one, who suffers from the psychosis, who suffers from the gonorrhea. It is transmitted to the female in the similar manner, in the same stage. And all of a sudden, after the marriage, who was perfectly healthy till the marriage, starts dropping down. He explained over there that she develops anemia, she becomes pale, the puffiness develops, she doesn't have a strength, and she might develop any pelvic inflammatory disease. It might be salpingitis, it might be ovaritis, it might be ovarian cyst, it might be uterine fibroid, anything. Nothing was there prior to the marriage. So this is very important thing one must understand, because these are the things which modern science cannot explain. We have the answer for this. I think I have discussed the case which the lady who after the marriage was a sports player. After the marriage, all of a sudden started getting the breathlessness, and then she checked and she found there are problems in the heart. How this has happened? Within a year after marriage, she developed that. Earlier, she was a state player and not having anything, no breathlessness at all. This means miasm was transmitted in latent phase, the syphilitic miasm, and she suddenly developed the quaternary features of the miasm. So these things one must know. Then he says, this may be a forerunner to of the carcinomatous conditions of the breast and uterus, diabetes, Bright's disease, or numerous other diseases of this type, largely dependent upon previously existing trends in her own system. Psychotic manifestations are characterized by slowness of recovery. The subject is constantly slipping backward. The subject is constantly mm, slipping backwards because of the destructive character of the stigma whenever he gets an acute manifestation. So, what are the other problems which can develop because of this miasm? The first important thing he explains over there, the carcinomatous conditions of breast and uterus. Those belongs to the psychotic sensibility. Then generally fibroids of uterus, fibroadenoma of the breast. These are common entities which develops in psychotic miasm. Then Bright's disease. Bright's disease is nothing but the it is a inflammation of the kidneys, glomerular nephritis or nephrotic syndrome, or numerous other diseases of this type, largely dependent upon previously existing taint in our own system. So there might be a combination. She had earlier psoric manifestation, and this psychosis is impregnated in her after the sexual contact with her husband, and she has now a sauropsychotic miasm. Psychotic manifestations are characterized by slowness of recovery. Underline this. This sentence is very important. The slowness in reaction is the characteristic of the psychotic miasm. The subject is constantly slipping backward because of the destructive character of the stigma whenever he gets an acute manifestation. So this is very important thing which she has mentioned over there regarding the psychotic state, that the slowness of recovery and subject is constantly slipping backwards. You feel that patient is getting recover, and all of a sudden he slips back. Again, problem develops. Again, starts recovering. Again, slips back. This is the common thing which develops in this specific psychotic miasm. So this is one important feature one should not forget. If patient is not getting cured, I had a case. She had a breast ulcer, and she was not getting recovered. It was looking like that she was getting better, and again slipping back. It has happened. It happens nearly about 6 months, and then after considering it might be a psychotic miasm, I have given her medorinum 1 m and medorinum 10 m thereafter. And immediately the recovery has started, and it recovery becomes fast, and it has completely recovered. So this is very important thing which he has explained. Slowness of recovery and slipping backward of the case are the commonest signs which you can get in this psychotic miasm. The psychotic patient is exceedingly suspicious. Underline this. Suspiciousness is the characteristic of this miasm. Very, very suspicious. The suspicion extends to the point where he dare not trust himself. He must go back and repeat what he has done or said and wonders if he has said just what he means. See, he is the person who is going to do the same thing again and again, repeats the same thing again and again. He goes and checks whether he has closed the door. Again, after some time, he goes and again checks. So, checking and rechecking the things, suspiciousness on himself only, and not having confidence on him. This is the characteristic of this miasm. This is just one more feature. This is obsessive compulsive disorder. This is OCD. Psychotic miasm is closely related with OCD. He goes back and starts again. Is the suspicious that he will be misunderstood and that his hearers will give the wrong meaning to what he is attempting to convey. The patient is suspicious to the level that he feels himself that others are not understanding him. This is common thing about the psychotic miasm. They feel that they get misunderstood. This suspicion of his friends, for he knows full well that he is not understood. The psychotic trend develops the worst forms of degeneracy because the basic suspicion and jealousy, patient will resort to any and all means of vindicating themselves in their own life. Vindictiveness, vindictive khunnas. These are the people most dangerous. Most dangerous people are psychotic because they keep everything in their mind and it reflects anytime, even after 10 years after that. They keep that inside and they um, go for fighting with the other people. They never forget the things. That is very important thing which he has mentioned. So suspiciousness, jealousy, another characteristic of this miasm, jealousy. These are people who are quite jealous. They never likes that others are progressing. This is the problem with the suspicious and psychotic person. So they are always finding it out what other person was doing, how he or she is going ahead, and they never consider that they are doing well. That is the problem with them. And if something wrong happens with them, they keep that in their mind, and they becomes hatred towards them. The hatredness is very marked, and that hatredness never disappears. It is so rigid, so fixed. There is one rubric in Kant's repertory: hatred persons of unmoved by an apology. And single remedy which is mentioned over there is nitric acid. This is typical psychotic remedy, psychotic psychosyphilitic remedy. And this hatredness is to the level of vindictiveness. This is the most markedly degenerate of the stigmata in its suspicion, its quarrelsomeness, its tendency to harm others and to harm animals. So they harm animals, they harm others, and generally they don't show that they are harming, but they harms the others. And this is their, in fact, the quality that they tries to hide the things. That is the most important. Liar persons are the psychotic persons. They are quite liars. This produces the worst forms of cruelty. See, you had seen that the children who are psychotic enough, they do such mischievous acts. They apply the crackers to the tail of the dog, and sometimes even they kills the ants directly, or they kill something and crush that. Such types of typical cruelty is the characteristic of psychotic miasm. Very characteristic. So this produces the worst forms of cruelty and cunning deceit. Cunning, deceit, deceitful, kapti, and cunning, tiraskar. So very important thing. They keeps the things inside. And you don't know that when they will fight with you anytime in future, when they takes the recite. The worst forms of mania of any of the stigmata. Underline this sentence. In fact, syphilitic is better than psychotic. Syphilitic is open enough. You know what he is doing. Psychotic, you don't know what he is doing. There are many people, psychotic people, you don't understand what is going on in their mind. This is the problem, and that's why he says over there, most important sentence, the worst forms of mania of any of the stigmata. Sora is always a person. He talks in truths, and he never, if he fights, there must be a reason. Syphilis, overreactions, but at least open reaction. Psychotic, you don't know what he is doing. So, very important feature, the worst forms of many of any of the stigmata. The psychotic patient is cross and irritable. They are having a lack of confidence in mind, and because of which they never understands many things. Understanding faculty is less, and whenever someone says something, they immediately says, "I will not do it." That is the simple reaction. They are always cross and irritable. He is absent-minded in certain things. Another rubric. If you have a repertory with you, you have all those rubrics over there. Absent-mindedness, very common with the psychotic. He is absent-minded in certain things and finds difficulty in getting the right word. They cannot get the right word at that time. The more he looks at the word after he has written it, the more strange it seems and less confidence that it is right. This is the problem with them. They write something, they write the answer over there, and then all of a sudden they feels whether I have written right thing. After the exam, they are always have a stress in their mind whether I have written right answer of this question. This the problem lies with the psychotic people. This is the question which arises in many of the homeopathic students. He forgets the recent happenings but remembers distant events very clearly. Whatever has happened recently, he forgets, but whatever is old, he never forgets. If there is anything grudge in the mind which has happened 20 years back, 30 years back, but it is still there in their mind, and they says you have said like that at that time after 30 years. This is the big thing which is there with psychotics. They keep the things inside their mind and it comes out whenever needed. Psychosis, like the syphilitic stigma, has the mark of self-condemnation, which is moral reaction to the inception of the disease. Self-condemnation. Generally, this is more of the syphilitic stigmata. Self-condemnation happens more with the syphilitic, very occasionally with psychotic. This is a moral feeling. They blames themselves that they have not done things right way or in that way. That is more relates to the one rubric, anxiety conscience of, but that is more syphilitic than psychotic. Psychotic generally never feels anything like that. So they are not so conscientious people. If they are self-condemning, it is only because they have done something wrong, and that's why they condemn themselves. So see, this is the difference between the syphilitic miasm and psychotic miasm. So here self-condemnation is related whatever the wrong he has done, but there is no sense of conscience which is there with the aurum or with the syphilitic miasm. But in syphilitic miasm, the conscience is much more that I am wrong. Because of me, this has happened. It should not have happened. This type of conscience or anxiety which is there with syphilitic miasm. So see, he is explaining the mind of the psychotic miasm. Here too, we find the fixed ideas as in syphilis and in the union of two stigmata, these characteristics. Much more marked. There is also some slow mental power. The psychotic is disposed to the fits of anger, and when syphilitic taint is also present, the people present, these people present, the picture of sullen, smothering type of threaten to break out into dangerous manifestation. So, see, fixed ideas is one of the important thing which is there with psychotic mind. Fixed idea is responsible to produce generally a OCD also. There are very fixed things in their mind, and those never disappears unless you give them an antipsychotic remedy. There was one patient who came to me for headache. I took the whole history. She was just 32 years and her father brought her. She was married, have two children. But what has happened? First time she got headache, she went to the doctor. He examined her, and he just said a word that you have. She asked, "Well, why I'm having the headache again and again?" He just said one sentence that you are having a less blood in your body. That's why you are having such a problem. So she checked the blood, and luckily, or unfortunately, you can say, she had less blood. It was 7.5 or something like that. Then the doctor advised that to take one bottle of blood. He has given one bottle of blood to her, and after that, she felt better. And thereafter, this thought becomes fixed in her mind that she had a headache because her blood is less. Before coming to me, she had consumed 36 bottles of blood. This is very, very important thing. The fixed idea never goes. She was taken to psychiatrist, he has given many tranquilizers and everything, but the thought was not going from her mind. And if any doctor refused to give her a blood, she used to change the doctor, but she used to take the blood. So this is fixed idea. Fixed idea never goes unless you treat them with proper psychotic remedy. Slow mental power. Slow mental power, there is little bit difficulty in understanding. Then you cannot recollect the things clearly. Psychotic is disposed to fits of anger, and when syphilitic taint is also present, these people present a picture of sullen, smoldering type that threaten to break out into a dangerous manifestation. Sullen means the face which is angry looking face, or you can say like that. You talk like that त्याच्या चेहऱ्यावर नेहमी 12 वाजलेले असतात. It is very, every time it has been looked like anger. When it meets with Sora, psychosis coupled with Sora is the basis of most criminal insanity and most suicides. When psychosis and Sora mix together, it is most cruel criminal insanity. And last thing, most of the suicides. Degenerates are psychotic or syphilitic and result from combined destructiveness of two stigma. So if there is any cruelty happens, criminal things happen, these peoples are not sorry. These are either psychotic or syphilitic, but more commonly they are psychotic. So he has explained over there a complete mental picture of or psychological picture of psychosis in those paragraphs. Today we have discussed the mental psychosis, how the patient presents. Tomorrow we'll continue with the rest of the things. So thank you being there. Meet again tomorrow at the same time. Good evening.
Thank you, sir.